Hello there. Well, I've just spent 2 weeks with my husband in a beautiful part of the world, actually in one of the oldest known rainforests in the world, the Daintree in Queensland, Australia. And it was absolutely beautiful. It was 2 weeks away from my regular routine. Now, I highly recommend that you too take time out from your regular routine. Why is it important? Well, it's important to know that we often find ourselves getting stuck into ruts of subconscious, unconscious behavior in our lives. We basically run on autopilot. And when we have a really set routine in our lives, where we don't take time out to change the energy, to remove ourselves from the mundane day-to-day things. When we don't do that, we lose sight of what is conscious behavior in our lives. We become that program running. And scientists have shown that 95% of the average person's thoughts are subconscious. They're the same thoughts from the day before. So why is it important that we don't run on subconscious all the time? Well, because I believe, and I think many people agree with this, it's not truly living. When we're run by our programming, we're not truly alive. Do we really have free will and sovereignty when we're being run by programs based on our beliefs, our values, and our experiences, these filters of perception that filter out a lot of information that we're missing all the time because we're simply being run on programming? Now, I think it's really important that we move gradually, if you like, out of our programmed way of life. And I talk about this as this is a big theme in mastering our minds. This is a big theme in what NLP is, neuro-linguistic programming. We're learning to recognize how we've been running on programs our whole lives and how it leads to suffering and pain. True sovereignty and freedom in this life experience is when we awaken from the program, from the dream, and recognize that we actually have free will. And so I believe that it's important to take time out from our regular routine to be able to really see in the light of day where we've been running on autopilot. So for me, 2 weeks out on the road up into the Daintree was absolutely integral to me being able to look back at my life and see what parts of my life were being run automatically without my free will and my sovereignty. Now, what I found was, and this is very typical of someone who has the A type of personality, the high achiever, the perfectionist, which is somewhat part of my old programming. Many of you might resonate with that. It's very typically, we run a program where we are constantly in the future. We are living in this future idea of tomorrow, what we need to get done tomorrow, what we need to prepare for tomorrow, what we need to worry about tomorrow. And the thing with living this way is that we're living in illusion. The tomorrow doesn't exist. All we have is right now. Tomorrow never comes around. So when we can have time out from our regular routine, we can begin to see where we're living in this constant state of tomorrow. And we're truly missing out on the presence of life when we live tomorrow. We're living in that illusion, that fantasy, as I mentioned. So how do we get out of this state of tomorrow all the time and live now? Well, we need to recognize when we're living in overwhelm, when we're juggling too many things in our lives. I am guilty of this. I have always had this propensity for writing lists and following them through and beating myself up when I don't get that list ticked off completely in a day. But I dictate the list from the beginning. So it's my own world of guilt and pressure that I've created. And the issue with this is, of course, that when we live in this tomorrow list, we can't be now. We can't be present. We can't be in the only real moment that truly exists, and that is now. Because we need to remember that time isn't real. It's just an illusion within this simulation, within this three-dimensional world. Everything is unfolding right now in this now moment. Everything. So it helps to recognize in your life where you are overwhelming yourself, where you are juggling. Why are you juggling so many things? When you are multitasking too much. And I believe most multitasking is too much. Because can we truly be present in a task and truly focused when we have many things on the go at once? I don't believe we can. I think to really get into true flow, that flow state where our brain is an alpha theta zone, that flow state where we lose track of time and space and we feel truly alive and present. To get into that flow state, we cannot be using lists. We cannot be multitasking and juggling multiple things at once. We cannot be running from one thing to the next in our life. We cannot be living in tomorrow, today. We're missing out on life. We're missing out on that flow state. And so for me, this is a gradual journey of learning how to move out of the old programming of this idea of living in tomorrow, of being and doing and producing things for tomorrow. So rather than we kind of self-sabotage when we live for tomorrow all the time today. How are we self-sabotaging? Well, we're trying to control everything. And we control everything with just the limited amount of knowledge we have that the brain holds. Rather than when we live in flow state, we move from the brain down into the heart. We stop thinking, we move into feeling. We open our heart. We live in a bigger field, an electromagnetic field that far supersedes that of the brain. We open ourselves up to opportunities and events and situations and circumstances that support our highest timeline. When we forget about living for tomorrow, when we just live for now. When we live in the flow, we receive that guidance, wisdom, intuition, and intelligence direct from source, as I mention all the time. So this is just a reminder, as much as it is for myself, the insight that I received on my away time in the Daintree rainforest. The insight was to simplify. Simplify. Why are you juggling so many things when you don't even get a chance to live for this moment now? You don't stop to smell the roses, that old saying. Is this really how you want to live your life? This is the questions I've asked myself. And I mentioned it's a journey. We can gradually see as we introduce this idea of simplicity and one thing at a time, and casting off and casting aside those things that we've just been doing out of pure programming. Not for us, not for our highest good, but for some sort of cultural value that's been put upon us in our early programming. To let all that go and to really ask yourself, what is really important to me in this precious life experience that I have so many years within? What do I really want to experience? Perhaps you can cut off half the stuff you've been doing every day. You never know. But we really need to allow ourselves this space to become conscious rather than unconscious in everything we do and set out to do in our lives, day to day. Conscious means that you have space and time to really decide from your own sovereign position that you want to do something and that it has its place in flow in your life, in the grace of flow in your life. It's synchronized, it's guided, it's direct from the divine for your highest good and your highest potential. When we live in this world of juggling and multitasking and living for tomorrow, we miss out on all of that. We miss out on that flow that is the grace given to us from the divine, our higher self, showing us our highest timeline. We can open our ears and our eyes to see things when we do it consciously rather than unconsciously, out of habit, pattern, behavior, programming. So let's move from this overwhelm, task-orientated, living for the future lifestyle into a single-focused space to be inspired by the divine, space to see our path one step at a time in the flow with an open heart. This requires surrender. We can't control everything. This is the old perfectionist, achieving personality type. Tries to control everything. Doesn't work. It won't work. It'll only lead to more suffering and frustration and not so much flow. So I hope this message comes timely for you to just simplify your life. Really take time to sit down and question what is of unconscious behavior in your life. What can you let go of? What can you surrender so that you're more open to inspired action from the divine? So if you like this message, please like, subscribe, and share, and have a beautiful day. See ya.